An organization is an entity, such as an institution or an association, that has a collective goal and is linked to an external environment. The word is derived from the Greek word organon, itself derived from the better-known word ergon, which means organ. Types of organization. There are a variety of legal types of organizations, including corporations, governments, non-governmental organizations, international organizations, armed forces, charities, not-for-profit corporations, partnerships, cooperatives, universities, and various types of political organizations. A hybrid organization is a body that operates in both the public sector and the private sector simultaneously, fulfilling public duties and developing commercial market activities. A voluntary association is an organization consisting of volunteers. Such organizations may be able to operate without legal formalities, depending on jurisdiction, including informal clubs. Organizations may also operate in secret and/or illegally in the case of secret societies, criminal organizations and resistance movements. Organizational structures. The study of organizations includes a focus on optimizing organizational structure. According to management science, most human organizations fall roughly into four types: committees or juries, ecologies, matrix organizations, pyramids or hierarchies. Committees or juries, these consist of a group of peers who decide as a group, perhaps by voting. The difference between a jury and a committee is that the members of the committee are usually assigned to perform or lead further actions after the group comes to a decision, whereas members of a jury come to a decision. In common law countries, legal juries render decisions of guilt, liability and quantify damages. Juries are also used in athletic contests, book awards and similar activities. Sometimes a selection committee functions like a jury. In the Middle Ages, juries in continental Europe were used to determine the law according to consensus amongst local notables. Committees are often the most reliable way to make decisions. Condorcet's jury theorem proved that if the average member votes better than a roll of dice, then adding more members increases the number of majorities that can come to a correct vote. The problem is that if the average member is subsequently worse than a roll of dice, the committee's decisions grow worse, not better. Therefore, staffing is crucial. Parliamentary procedure, such as Robert's Rules of Order, helps prevent committees from engaging in lengthy discussions without reaching decisions. Ecologies, this organization has intense competition. Bad parts of the organization starve. Good ones get more work. Everybody is paid for what they actually do, and runs a tiny business that has to show a profit, or they are fired. Companies who utilize this organization type reflect a rather one-sided view of what goes on in ecology. It is also the case that a natural ecosystem has a natural border. Ecoregions do not in general compete with one another in any way, but are very autonomous. The pharmaceutical company GlaxoSmithKline talks about functioning as this type of organization in this external article from The Guardian. By Bastien Batak de Leon, Matrix Organization. This organizational type assigns each worker two bosses in two different hierarchies. One hierarchy is functional, and assures that each type of expert in the organization is well trained, and measured by a boss who is super expert in the same field. The other direction is executive, and tries to get projects completed using the experts. Projects might be organized by products, regions, customer types, or some other schema. As an example, a company might have an individual with overall responsibility for products X and Y, and another individual with overall responsibility for engineering, quality control etc. Therefore, subordinates responsible for quality control of Project X will have two reporting lines. Pyramids or hierarchical organization. A hierarchy exemplifies an arrangement with a leader who leads other individual members of the organization. This arrangement is often associated with bureaucracy. These structures are formed on the basis that there are enough people under the leader to give him support. Just as one would imagine a real pyramid, if there are not enough stone blocks to hold up the higher ones, gravity would irrevocably bring down the monumental structure. So one can imagine that if the leader does not have the support of his subordinates, the entire structure will collapse. Hierarchies were satirized in The Peter Principle, a book that introduced hierarchiology and the saying that in a hierarchy every employee tends to rise to his level of incompetence. Organization theories. In the social sciences, organizations are the object of analysis for a number of disciplines, such as sociology, economics, political science, psychology, management, and organizational communication. The broader analysis of organizations is commonly referred to as organizational structure, organizational studies, organizational behavior, or organization analyses. A number of different perspectives exist, some of which are compatible. From a functional perspective, the focus is on how entities like businesses or state authorities are used. From an institutional perspective, an organization is viewed as a purposeful structure within a social context. From a process-related perspective, an organization is viewed as an entity as being organized, and the focus is on the organization as a set of tasks or actions. Sociology can be defined as the science of the institutions of modernity. Specific institutions serve a function, akin to the individual organs of a coherent body. In the social and political sciences in general, an organization may be more loosely understood as the planned, coordinated and purposeful action of human beings working through collective action to reach a common goal or construct a tangible product. This action is usually framed by formal membership and form. Sociology distinguishes the term organization into planned formal and unplanned informal organizations. Sociology analyzes organizations in the first line from an institutional perspective. In this sense, organization is a permanent arrangement of elements. These elements and their actions are determined by rules so that a certain task can be fulfilled through a system of coordinated division of labor. Economic approaches to organizations also take the division of labor as a starting point. The division of labor allows for specialization. Increasing specialization necessitates coordination. From an economic point of view, markets and organizations are alternative coordination mechanisms for the execution of transactions. An organization is defined by the elements that are part of it, its communication, its autonomy, and its rules of action compared to outside events. By coordinated and planned cooperation of the elements, the organization is able to solve tasks that lie beyond the abilities of the single elements. The price paid by the elements is the limitation of the degrees of freedom of the elements. Advantages of organizations are enhancement, addition and extension. Disadvantages can be inertness and loss of interaction. Among the theories that are or have been influential are, activity theory is the major theoretical influence, acknowledged by de Clodomé of Santos de Moraes in the development of organization workshop method. Actor-Euro-network theory, an approach to social theory and research, originating in the field of science studies, which treats objects as part of social networks. Complexity theory and organizations, the use of complexity theory in the field of strategic management and organizational studies. Contingency theory, a class of behavioral theory that claims that there is no best way to organize a corporation, to lead a company, or to make decisions. Critical management studies, a loose but extensive grouping of theoretically informed critiques of management, business and organization, grounded originally in a critical theory perspective. Economic sociology, studies both the social effects and the social causes of various economic phenomena. Enterprise architecture, the conceptual model that defines the coalescence of organizational structure and organizational behavior. Garbage can model, describes a model which disconnects problems, solutions and decision-makers from each other. Principal-Euro-agent problem, concerns the difficulties in motivating one party to act in the best interests of another rather than in his or her own interests. Scientific management, a theory of management that analyzes and synthesizes workflows. Social entrepreneurship, the process of pursuing innovative solutions to social problems. Transaction cost theory, the idea that people begin to organize their production in firms when the transaction cost of coordinating production through the market exchange, given imperfect information, is greater than within the firm. Weber's ideal of bureaucracy, leadership in organizations. A leader in a formal, hierarchical organization, who is appointed to a managerial position, as the right to command and enforce obedience by virtue of the authority of his position. However, he must possess adequate personal attributes to match his authority, because authority is only potentially available to him. In the absence of sufficient personal competence, a manager may be confronted by an emergent leader who can challenge his role in the organization and reduce it to that of a figurehead. However, only authority of position has the backing of formal sanctions. It follows that whoever wields personal influence and power can legitimize this only by gaining a formal position in the hierarchy, with commensurate authority. Leadership in formal organizations, an organization that is established as a means for achieving defined objectives has been referred to as a formal organization. Its design specifies how goals are subdivided and reflected in subdivisions of the organization. Divisions, departments, sections, positions, jobs, and tasks make up this work structure. Thus, the formal organization is expected to behave impersonally in regard to relationships with clients or with its members. According to Weber's definition, entry and subsequent advancement is by merit or seniority. Each employee receives a salary and enjoys a degree of tenure that safeguards him from the arbitrary influence of superiors or of powerful clients. The higher his position in the hierarchy, the greater his presumed expertise in adjudicating problems that may arise in the course of the work carried out at lower levels of the organization. It is this bureaucratic structure that forms the basis for the appointment of heads or chiefs of administrative subdivisions in the organization and endows them with the authority attached to their position. Leadership in informal organizations, in contrast to the appointed head or chief of an administrative unit, a leader emerges within the context of the informal organization that underlies the formal structure. The informal organization expresses the personal objectives and goals of the individual membership. Their objectives and goals may or may not coincide with those of the formal organization. The informal organization represents an extension of the social structures that generally characterize human life via the spontaneous emergence of groups and organizations as ends in themselves. In prehistoric times, man was preoccupied with his personal security, maintenance, protection, and survival. Now man spends a major portion of his waking hours working for organizations. His need to identify with a community that provides security, protection, maintenance, and a feeling of belonging continues unchanged from prehistoric times. This need is met by the informal organization and its emergent, or unofficial, leaders. Leaders emerge from within the structure of the informal organization. Their personal qualities, the demands of the situation, or a combination of these and other factors attract followers who accept their leadership within one or several overlay structures. Instead of the authority of position held by an appointed head or chief, the emergent leader wields influence or power. Influence is the ability of a person to gain cooperation from others by means of persuasion or control over rewards. Power is a stronger form of influence because it reflects a person's ability to enforce action through the control of a means of punishment. See also. References. Coase, Ronald. The Nature of the Firm Economica, 4, 16, ppA 386 €405. Handy, Charles. Inside Organizations, 21 Ideas for Managers. London, BBC Books. ISBN A978-0-563-20830-3. Handy, Charles. Understanding Organizations. London, Penguin Books. ISBN A978-0-14-015603-4. Hewlett, Roderick. The Cognitive Leader. Rowman and Littlefield Pub Incorporated. Johnson, Richard Arvid. Management, Systems, and Society. An Introduction. Pacific Palisades, California. Goodyear Pub Company. ISBN A0-87620-540-6. OCLC A2299496. Katz, Daniel. Kahn, Robert Louis. The Social Psychology of Organizations. New York, Wiley. OCLC A255184. March, James G. Simon, Herbert A. Organizations. New York, Wiley. ISBN A0-471-56793-0. OCLCA 1329335. Marshak, Thomas. Organization Theory, The New Palgrave, A Dictionary of Economics, v. 3, ppA 757 €60. Mintzberg, Henry. Organization Design, Fashion or Fit. Harvard Business Review, Morgenstern, Julie. Organizing from the Inside Out. OWL Books. ISBN 0-8050-5649-1, Peter, Lawrence J. and Raymond Hull. The Peter Principal Pan Books 1970. ISBN 0-330-02519-8, Rogers, Carl R. Roethlisberger, Fritz Jules. Barriers and Gateways to Communication. Boston, Massachusetts. Harvard Business Review. OCLCA 154,085,959. Sampson, D., Daft, Our Management, 2nd Pacific Rim Edition. Melbourne, Victoria, Thompson, Satur, Virginia. Conjoint Family Therapy. A Guide to Theory and Technique. Palo Alto, California, Science and Behavior Books. OCLCA 187,068. Scott, William Richard. Institutions and Organizations. London, Sage Publications Limited. ISBN A978-1-4129-5090-9. External links, research on organizations, bibliography database and maps, thetransitioner.org, a site dedicated to collective intelligence and structure of organizations.